Namaskara. Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Sadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Parampara. As usual, the Shruti Jala Marganam, edition 3, that is the third year, continuously have been organizing this webinar series during this Shravana Purnima that is associated with Samskrita Dinam, extended up to 7 days and call it as a Samskrita Saptaha. Since 2022, Shastra University's Department of Oriental Studies and Research have been organizing this webinar series, inviting various scholars to talk on various subjects which are relevant to the public in general and the students of Shastra in particular, to get various information from various sources through various scholars. And this year also, we have organized 7 lectures, and this one being the 7th one, the last one, not the least one. And we are very, very fortunate to have Dr. Saraswati Murali, who is a research scholar attached to our department and recently got the degree from the recently held convocation. I'm very, very, very happy to invite Dr. Saraswati Murali ji to this webinar. And the topic is going to be ArthaŠāstram, that is on public policy. As we all know, Anvikshiki, Trayi, Varta, Dandaniti. These 4 are the Vidyasthanas suggested by ArthaŠāstra, authored by Kautilya, that is Chanakya. Anvikshiki is the Vidya known otherwise as Nyaya-Shastram or Tarka-Shastram. Trayi is nothing but our Vedas. Iti Vedas, Trayas Trayi, according to Amarakosha. So Vedas are known as Trayi. Varta is Krishi, Vanijyam, Pashupadyam. Agriculture, cattle breeding, and also dairy business. All these things come under Varta. Dandaniti is about the legal system and how the law and order being managed by the state. All these are very, very relevant for the society to be appraised of, and it is very, very pertinent to note that our Murali ji, Saraswati Murali ji, had done her PhD in the same subject, ArthaŠāstra, and had beautifully presented his thesis and defended it, and everyone was very appreciative of her efforts. And she is a chartered accountant by profession and also faculty of CA and former Hindi officer of Board of Management of this thing, Bank of Maharashtra. Yeah, and we are very, very fortunate to have you, ma'am. Swagatam. And our Kumari Aditi Arvind is going to render the prayer, followed by Saraswati ji's lecture. Once again, I welcome you all for this webinar. Namaskar.
Maitrim bhajata akhila hrijayatrim. Maitrim bhajata akhila hrijayatrim. Atmavadeva paranapi pashyata. Atmavadeva paranapi pashyata. Yuddham tyajata spardham tyajata. Yuddham tyajata spardham tyajata. Tyajata pareshwar kramakramanam. Tyajata pareshwar kramakramanam. Janani prithvi kamadughaste. Janani prithvi जनको देवः सकलदयालु जनको देवः सकलदयालु राम्यत दत्ता दयध्वं जनता दाम्यत दत्ता दयध्वं जनता श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकलजनानां.
Now we can type.
Yes, thanks.
Thank you.
Pranams to everyone. First, let me thank ArthaŠāstra for having given me this opportunity, especially HOD Dr. Venugopalanji, Assistant Professor Dr. Tyagarajanji, and others in the department. Today, the topic being ArthaŠāstram Public Policy, and in the series, today is the 7th lecture, and the department has organized 6 different lectures, starting from Dharma and ending with ArthaŠāstram, which is highly noticeable. Now, my presentation structure will be public policy, Dharma, ArthaŠāstra, economics, Kautilya ArthaŠāstra, Kautiliyo, Purusharthaha, introduction of ArthaŠāstra work, components in Kautilya's ArthaŠāstra, ArthaŠāstra, the different 15 books, Kautilya's finance focus, embezzlement, Kautilya's governance approach, and continuing relevance of that in present days. Coming to the phrase public policy, what it means. It is a system of laws, regulatory measures, guidelines, and funding priorities identified by governments or their representatives to fulfill public interest goals. That can be individual policies as well as public policies. When the word public comes, it comes to government and the society as a whole. Again, a set of laws, regulations, and actions that governments use to address social, economic, and political issues. There can be different issues, but specifically this public policy talks about social, economic, and political issues. Again, these are the set of actions, plans, laws, and behaviors adopted by a government. Coming to the word policy, the Sanskrit equivalent would be niti, nyaya, suniti, and sunaya, rajaniti, nripaniti, etc. So this public policy evolution, public policies have not been new. They have been integral to the governance structure of countries over centuries. Especially in India, the roots of policy formulation date back to the ancient universities of Nalanda and Vaishali. During the reign of Chandragupta Maurya, Chanakya, a renowned scholar, outlined state policies in seminal work ArthaŠāstra. Jawaharlal Nehru did not want to have that colonizing system, so he wanted to emphasize on decolonizing, and an institute was started under the Societies Act, Indian Institute of Public Administration, and he was the first president of that society. Now it is an autonomous body which has been incorporating training and giving training in different fields relevant to public servants area with the domain knowledge, functional skills, and behavioral competences, etc. Now coming to Dharma, as HOD was mentioning what Dharma is, even in earlier lectures he was mentioning about it. The concept of Dharma, or the law of righteousness, encompasses a rich tradition of ethics, Indian heritage philosophy, which has shaped the spiritual and intellectual concepts for thousands of years, governing all aspects of life. It can be interpreted as duty, morality, social responsibility, and it is central to the Indian ethics. Indian heritage philosophy inspires and guides seekers of truth around the world. Now coming to Dharma-shastra, it is the science or Shastra of Dharma, a branch of Indian heritage literature comprising a variety of treatises on duties and ethics. Dharma-shastra literature is vast. Aspects of Dharma are extolled in Vedas, Puranas, Itihasas, and other major Sanskrit works. There is dedicated discussion on all these things, especially of Dharma in Smritis or texts which codify remembered tacit knowledge like Yajnavalkya Smriti and Manusmriti. Now coming to Nītiśāstra, the umbrella of Dharma in the sense of ethics is wide enough to encompass the principles governing both the individual and the state. This is to be noticed, individual and the state, though the word Nītiśāstra is used for the latter, because Niti means policy or political ethics. Examples of Nītiśāstra are Vidura Niti, Shukra Niti. The body of literature on Nītiśāstra can be bifurcated into Danda Niti, which is about the administration of justice, and Rajaniti, with advice for the kings. Traditionally, the ruler had the benefit of advice from the wise, and attempts at codification of such counsel are seen in Ramayana and Mahabharata. Coming to ArthaŠāstra, a subsequent and elaborate example of codification relevant to finance and administration is ArthaŠāstra by Kautilya, also known as Chanakya and Vishnugupta, that is 350 BC to 275 BCE. This treatise resurfaced after millennia of hiatus in the beginning of the 20th century. Ever since, it has been seneschal, especially of professional, given its focus on statecraft, economic policy, and military strategy. Its author, a scholar from Dakshashila, an education hub, was the Prime Minister of Chandragupta Maurya around 2500 years ago. Economics, as a word, this means ArthaŠāstra means economics. It is in this sense that one comes across Kumbhakarna speaking his mind out to Ravana, his brother, in Valmiki Ramayana in Yuddhakanda, cautioning the king not to pay heed to the counsel of those ignorant in the knowledge of ArthaŠāstra. Similarly, in Mahabharata in Shanti Parva, Arjuna is described as being proficient in ArthaŠāstra. Coming to Kautilya's ArthaŠāstra, it is a treatise called ArthaŠāstra written by Kautilya, which has more than 5,000 Sanskrit statements, long and short, in the form of both terse prose or sutras and poetic verses or slokas. The treatise is organized in 180 sections with the titles such as Topic of Council, Rules for the Envoy, Settlement of the Countryside, Construction of Forts, the setting up of revenue by the administrator, and the topic of accounts in the Records and Audit Office. These sections are further grouped into 150 chapters, which in turn form the 15 books of ArthaSāstra. Other names are Vishnugupta and Chanakya. He destroyed the powers of Nandas and placed Chandragupta Maurya on the throne of Magadha in 321 BC. Now coming to Purusharthaha, Sukhasya Moolam Dharmaha, Dharmasya Moolam Arthaha, Arthasya Moolam Rajyam. Root of happiness is Dharma. Root of Dharma is Artha. Root of Artha is right governance. That's what Kautilya says, and he means it. Dharma Artha Avirodena Kamam Seveta na Niksukha Syat. The king, one should enjoy sensual pleasures without contravening his spiritual good and material well-being. He should not deprive himself of pleasures. So he also cautions, without contravening spiritual good and material well-being, enjoy sensual pleasures. The statements are like this. Samam va trivargam anyonya anubantham. All these things are interconnected. So one should devote himself equally to the three goals of life, which are bound up with one another. One should not sacrifice one thing for the sake of others. There are three goals of life: spiritual goodness, material well-being, and sensual pleasures. Samam va trivargam anyonya anubantham. So excessive indulgence in one goal harms it and the other two. See, we should not be having one thing to be more, which may cause rather disadvantages or demerits to the other things. Now, Artha eva pradana iti Kautilyaha. Material well-being alone is supreme, says Kautilya. Artha mulohi dharma kama iti. For spiritual good and sensual pleasures depend on material well-being. From this sentence, we can conclude that how important ArthaSāstra is, Artha is, that material well-being is very, very important. Only when we have that, we can think of the other areas. So material well-being becomes the superset. Spiritual good is one of the subsets. And in spiritual good, we have the other subset as sensual pleasures. So introduction of this work, ArthaSāstra, it consists of 6,000 slokas, 180 sections, 150 chapters, and 15 books. These books are called Adhikaranas, chapters Adhyaya, sections Prakarana. This is easy to learn, understand, and precise in doctrine. So again, the same thing has been given in a form of a chart: 15 books, 150 chapters, 180 sections, and 6,000 slokas. So the 15 books, I will just mention them. Then I will speak about it, everything in a short manner. First one is Vinayadikarikam, book 1. Second book is Adhyaksha Pracharaka, activity of heads of departments. Then Dharmasteyam, concerning judges. Khandaka Shodhanam, suppression of criminals. Yoga Vrittam, secret conduct. Mandala Yonihi, circle of kings. Shadgunyam, 6 measures of foreign policy. Vyasanadikarikam, concerning calamities. There are different types of calamities, which I will speak about it little later. Abhyasyat Karma, activity of king about to march. Sangramigam, regarding war, concerning war. Sanghavrittam, policy towards oligarchies. Abaliyasam, concerning weaker king. Durga Lambopayaha, means of taking a fort. Upanishadikam, concerning secret practices. Tantra Yukti, method of science. Coming to book 1, concerning training, the slokas are in the nature of statement rather than verses. The topic on defense, construction of fort, activity of secret agent, domain of administration, revenue management, forest management, and also how the training has to be given to king, how the ministers are chosen, everything is discussed under this book, book 1. Coming to Adhyaksha Pracharaka, activity of heads of departments. Nowadays, we have state government, central government, and all other things. On those days, for every, rather the area like textiles, gold, mines, for each and everything, they had a separate department. He talks about it in this. and how the agricultural lands have to be disposed of, construction of forts, layout of fortified city, the topic of accounts in the records and audit office, recovery of revenue, management of shipping, superintendent of elephants, chariot, foot soldiers. And coming to book 3, which is Dharmasthiyam concerning judges, determination of valid and invalid transactions. This entire book would be more relevant to law students. Whatever different laws we do have today, everything had been discussed by Kautilya. Then filing of lawsuits concerning marriages, partition, inheritance, laws concerning slaves and laborers, undertakings in Partnership Act we do have today, physical and verbal injury, gambling and betting. Gambling was allowed, but there were rules and regulations for that. Coming to book 4, Kandaka Shodhanam, suppression of criminals, how crimes were seriously viewed and severe punishments were given for that. Keeping a watch over artisans, traders, each and every, rather the field had a different set of rules, policies, and keeping a watch over artisans, traders, remedial measures during calamities. Calamities were discussed in length, separate chapter is available there. So how to handle that? Then guarding against persons with secret income, detection of criminals through secret agents in the disguise of holy men. Even now we do have such things in other departments like income tax department and other places where how to identify one's income. Secret measures are available and those things were existing on those days as well. Keeping a watch over the officers of all departments, punishment for transgression. Then coming to Yoga Vritam, secret conduct. Then concerning infliction of punishment, replenishment of the treasury, which is considered to be more important, how the treasury has to be taken care of, how that is financial management. Getting finance is not sufficient, managing that is also equally important. So replenishing of treasury, concerning the salaries of state servants, how the salaries were fixed without partiality for the quality and also the work what is done, the salary was fixed. Concerning proper behavior for courtier, how the courtiers have to behave themselves, then continuous sovereignty. That is, in case the king is no longer going to be doing his work, how the situation has to be taken care of. Also, it is that kingship should not be having any discontinuous, continuous sovereignty. Then coming to the next one, Mandala Yonihi, circle of kings. Different circle of kings, that is, the neighbor king will be enemy, then the next neighbor will be friend, like that. Different things are discussed in this. Concerning constituent elements, excellence of the king, excellence of ministers, excellence of a treasury. When a treasury can be considered to be an excellent one, he gives lot of rather the rules and also the policies which have to be adopted to maintain the treasury. Then peace and activity, power and success. Coming to next one, 6 measures of foreign policy, short gunya, that is how to deal with the kings in different manner, whether to have peace with them or to go for a war or staying quiet or marching or seeking shelter with the king or dual policy, that is with some kings rather fighting with some kings having a peace, like that. Different things are discussed. So again, it is a policy. Then Vyasanadhikarikam concerning calamities, that is group of calamities of the constituent elements. The calamities can be caused by fire, flood, rats, rather natural calamities. So many types are discussed here. Consideration regarding the king and the kingship, then group of vices of men, group of afflictions, group of hindrances, stoppage of payment to treasury, calamities of army. So during the calamity, anything can take place, how that has to be handled. Again, it is considered to be a policy. Coming to book 9, Abhyasyat Karma, that is activity of king about to march, ascertainment of strength, weakness of one's own self as well as the other king, place and time when they have to go, whether they have to go in summer, whether they have to go in winter or rainy season or during the day, during the night, everything is being discussed. Seasons for marching, the work of employing suitable troops against enemy troops. Depending on the strength of the enemy troops, These kings, they have to have their own, rather the troops. Then expenses and gains. A war cannot be simply started. There will be a lot of expenses. There will be gains too. So a cost benefit analysis must be made there to decide whether to go for war or not. Then advantages and disadvantages of each and every one. Then coming to the next one, Sangramikam, then setting up of the camp, how the camp has to be set up, in which area it has to be set up, march from the camp, at what time it has to go, then guarding the troops during calamities of the army and during attack, then destruction of the troops. The opponent's troops also should be destroyed in case of need. So those things are discussed in this. Coming to Sangha Vrittam, Sangha means group. This policy towards oligarchies, that is resorting to the policy of dissension, forms of secret punishments. So one of the ways in which the people were punished was secret punishment. Coming to Abeliism concerning weaker king, the mission of the envoy, fight with the diplomacy, assassination of the enemy's army chief, secret use of weapons, fire, poisoning the entire area. That is, it may be a field or it may be a pond, it may be a reservoir or fire. The fire is put to the entire area so that the things are getting destroyed. Then destruction of enemies' supplies. They have to be given with water, food, ration, all those things. So that will be destroyed means they will not be able to survive. So these are the ways in which they were handling the war. Coming to book number 13, Durga Lambopayaga, how to capture a fort, means of taking a fort. Whether to capture the inside area first or the outside area first. So instigation of sedition, employment of secret agent, then pacification of the conquered territory. Then after that, after catching that fort, that other territory, how to handle them. Because the people will not be interested whether good king or bad king, any new king, they will not be able to welcome. So how to handle that. Then coming to book number 14, Upanishadikam, concerning secret practices for the destruction of enemy troops, then countermeasures against injuries to one's own troop. Sometimes even the king's troop may get destroyed due to many factors. So how to have them rather restored. Coming to book number 15, method of science. It is nothing but like a glossary it will be given. Whatever the statements, words, or the ways in which they have been described, that is given as a summary, mini glossary type, the devices used in the work. So the author himself explains everything that, so that no other person will give any rather different meaning for that. This is what all about 15 books. Now, coming to some of the focuses like governance, finance, fraud, we can have a few minutes spent on that. It is called The Science of Politics by the author Kautilya. His focus, however, is on the augmenting and safeguarding the treasury. Definitely financial policy. Even today we speak about financial policy, which is described as the ornament for the earth. Everything else, including the army, comes from the treasury. And when one has an army, even the enemy becomes friendly. Suppose we have a good army in our side, the enemy also, he becomes friend because of the wealth what we have. And coming to one of the important things discussed by him is the embezzlement, that is Harana Payash Sattvarimshat, 40 types of embezzlements are discussed. I have classified them into receipts, payment, trading, operation. In case of receipts, what frauds can take place. In case of payments, so for this, they have a policy in the manner that what would be the fine, what would be the penalty, what will be the rewards. That is considered as rather the policy for that. So embezzlement of receipts. Purvam Siddham Paschat Avataritam, Paschat Siddham Purvam Avataritam. Whatever takes place in the beginning, they record it later. Or whatever takes place later, they record it earlier. Sadhyam na Siddham, Asadhyam Siddham, Siddham Asiddham Kritam, Asiddham Siddham Kritam, Alpa Siddham Bahu Kritam, Bahu Siddham Alpam Kritam, Anyat Siddham Anyat Kritam, Anyataha Siddham Anyataha Kritam. I'll just put it as a summary. What is happening is different from what is recorded. It may be with respect to work, it may be with respect to time, it may be with respect to the quantity or the quality of work. Then coming to payment, same thing like Deyam na dattam, adeyam dattam. What is to be given, they don't give. What is not to be given, they record it as if it is given. Kale na dattam, akale dattam. They don't give in time. Untimely, rather, the payments. Alpam dattam, bahu kritam, bahu dattam, alpam kritam. That is, they give more, but record it as less. So, anyat dattam, anyat kritam, anyato dattam, anyataha kritam. So, in trading activities, when we see the entries which are made. Pravishtam, apravishtam kridam, apravishtam, pravishtam kritam. What is entered is not done. What is not done is not properly entered. Like that, different possible combinations are worked out. Kupyam adatta mulyam pravishtam, datta mulyam na pravishtam. Whatever is collected to the treasury, that is not being recorded properly. But whatever is given, that is also not recorded properly. That is, they rather change the numbers, like 200 becomes 2000, 20 becomes 200, something like that, they change it. Sanshopo vikshepaha, kritaha vikshepaha sanshepova, maha argam alpa argena parivartitam. They change the more values into lesser values. Alpa argam maha argenava. Then embezzlement in operational activities. Samvatsaro masa vishamaga kritaga. They change the year, they change the number of days, they change the weeks, they change the type of work, they change the weight, they change the phase of the things, and all these things are discussed in operational activities. Samvatsaro masa vishamaga kritaga, maso divasa vishamo va, samadama vishamaga mukha vishamaga, karmika vishamaga nivartana vishamaga, Pinta Vishamaga, Varna Vishamaga, quality is being changed. Arga Vishamaga, Mana Vishamaga, measurements, weight, Mapana Vishamaga, Bhajana Vishamaga. So now coming to the last segment of this is investigation, which is very much relating to policy. They had an investigation policy within the department itself, within the organization itself, and also they had whistleblowing concept. For those things, they used to be giving rewards and good, rather, wherever the penalties had to be given, they were giving penalties. Wherever the rewards had to be given, they were giving. Tatropayukta nidayaka nibandaka pradigrahaka dayaka dapaka mantri vaya vritya karan eka ekasho aniyujita. This becomes a good policy in investigation. Each and every person, whoever is maintaining the record, whoever is rather maintaining the system, each and every individual was individually investigated, and they are not supposed to talk with one another during this investigation. Mithyavade chaisham yukta samo dandaga. If anyone gives misstatements, that person will be equally punished. Prachare chava goshiyet amuna prakrteno pahataha prajnapayantu idi. Anybody gives wrong information, that person is also rather punished severely. Now, coming to governance, which is relating to policy as such, see, making a policy is not enough, but that has to be implemented also. And formulation of policies and implementation of policies. So here Kautilya talks about, it is the process of administering and managing the affairs of the state and its people. ArthaŠāstra codifies a comprehensive framework for governance that covers various aspects such as law and order, justice and punishment, diplomacy and war, welfare and development. It also provides a host of public policies to ensure the effectiveness and efficiency of governance. Now, it has continuing relevance as well. Before concluding, I would like to have an rather idea of all these things like receipts, payments, trading, operations. They had different policies for receipts. They had different policies for payment and trading and operations. That is one of the criteria of this policy. And coming to the finance focus, that as it discusses about the finance and the army, how it was taken care of, ration was given for horses, ration was given for elephants. So all, even for people, how much had to be given. So all these things come under policy. this much quantity has to be given for the horses, and this much quantity, even for elephants for that matter, they divide the elephants into different categories, and for that, how much ration has to go. So all these things come under the category of the policy, and it depends on the treasury. So in case of calamities, the treasury comes down. So how to increase the treasury? For that also they had different methods to rather increase the treasury. They used to collect money from rather the people, those who are willing to give, and they try to collect it. So they all under policy only. Like we have refund policy, income tax policy, rather admission policy. So for each and everything we have policy. Policy is nothing but rules and regulations. They have to be governed. So in order to govern all these things, we want rules. Even a general statement is existing, like when we have rules and regulations, then only control is possible. Only when we have control, security is possible. So we do require all these things. For that, Kautilya had rather emphasized on policies right from the beginning. Even for secret practices, they had a policy when to apply where. The secret practices cannot be applied everywhere. They have to be applied to destroy the enemy troops. How to do it? To identify who the chief is. First, rather removing the chief from there. How to remove a chief of the opponents, rather killing, or at what time to do it, or not giving food. Everything comes under policy. Then coming to a fourth, that is employment of secret agents to identify about that itself is a policy. So how the secret agents will be employed? They will go and act as if they belong to the opponents, and they will try to identify all the things from the opposite side and try to give the information to the rather this king. Then they will adopt the policy. So these are all. Then weaker king, that is even they had all the rules, like though they had secret practices, they were under rather righteous way. That is, the fight was done with the diplomacy. Assassination of the enemy's army chief. It is not suddenly he is shot dead. And also they made a big plan how to rather remove that person from there. Then secret use of weapons. That also when to use what type of weapon, who will be using it. They had rather rules and regulations for each and everything. So destruction of enemy supplies. Also, I just made a mention also when we were going through this slide, that is enemies supplies were cut off. So that the policy what these people adopt will be able to make these people win the entire situation. Then oligarchy. See that king is one thing, but also group of people, those who are involved, they are also very, very important. So it is Sanghavritam. They had a policy not to quarrel with the inside groups. So there also they had a policy towards oligarchies. Then concerning war, how to set up the camp, when to start, when to finish, how many people can be accommodated there, whether food will be available, rather water would be available. Then march from the camp. When to start, whether to start in the morning or to start in the afternoon, it depends on weather as well. So guarding the troops during calamities of the army and during attack, they got different types of setup for this army. What type of things to have? When the enemy changes the army, suddenly the pattern, this king also changes the pattern. So that itself becomes a policy. Like when they do it, we will also do it. Then destruction of troops. Then coming to the about to march, strength and weakness, SWOT analysis, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat. So what are the strength available within us and weakness in us? Similarly, strength with the opponent, weakness with the opponent. On the basis of those four factors only, these people carry out their activity to march. Place and time, seasons for marching that we made a mention earlier also. Suitable troops. When their troop is going to be very strong, we cannot send our rather weaker group. When their group is rather weak, we can send them because we cannot afford to sacrifice our rather troops also. So it has to be decided properly. Expenses and gains, of course, we said it. Sometimes it would be expensive now, but gains may be later. So they work it out and decide what type of policy to adopt. Then for each and everywhere, that advantages and disadvantages are given. Then setting up the camp, of course, we discussed about it. I just spoke about it. Then coming to Sanghavritam also we get seen. Then Vyasanadikarigam. This is something like a calamity where we keep seeing everywhere that war, flood, especially flood has been in talk everywhere. So how to handle that? Group of calamities, it may be due to different factors, they say, but each one of them has to be handled separately. Say, king is more important. When they talk about Vyasanadikarikam, they discuss whether king is important or ministers are important, whether citizens are important or natural resources are important. Here, Arthaśāstra, that is, it discusses different combination, king versus ministers, ministers versus rather the army versus treasury. Like that, he makes a comparison and he says which has to be taken care of first. So hindrances also will be more. So each and every hindrance has to be separately handled. Stoppage of payment to treasury, calamities of army. So sometimes what to do? No money, so the situation has to be handled. So they have to make a policy immediately. In Vyasanadikarigam, one of the important things is the junior can take out or carry out the activity only when they get the rather prior approval or permission from the top. But in case of emergency, they cannot wait till the end. What happened? So in case of emergency, the junior category people are given, rather they are approved to do to safeguard the country. Now, after that short gunyam, this is another important topic. A separate talk can be had on the 6 measures of foreign policy. When to have peace? How about the other king? Whether he is stronger than us or he is weaker than us? Or fighting, will it be rather beneficial to us at a later stage? Sometimes it is seeming to be beneficial now. Later stage, it may not be beneficial. So whether to have a peace treaty. Peace means for how many years we will have. Peace also is not very cheap. It is very costly. We have to give reconciliation. We have to give gift. We have to give rather gift in the form of land, rather army or horses or people. So that has to be taken. Everywhere the policy word is equally applicable. Really, the heading what is given to me today is more apt at the present situation because policy is very important. War, we can go for war. Maybe at present we may be saved from that situation, but later what will happen? That person will have enmity on us. So he may come and attack us with his own friends. So those areas should be taken care of. Staying quiet, remaining indifferent. Let us not act anything on this particular one. But that is also not easy. When we do not act, he will come and attack us at a later stage. So, or when we are very powerful, than the opponent, we may go for marching. But marching is very costly and seeking shelter, going and surrendering one's own self. But that is the last resort when we do not have anything to do. At least let the life be saved. Like that, the person may think and he may go and seek shelter. And dual policy, with some kings he goes for peace, and with some kings he goes for rather fight. And Mandalayoni, circle of kings, 72 different combinations are given in this. So the king's excellence, king's minister, friends, friend. Friends, enemies, friend, like that the thing goes. Rather, the neighboring country will normally be an enemy. But the next neighboring enemy's friend will be, the enemy's enemy will be our friend. Like that it goes. 72 different combinations whom to rather approach for our requirement is discussed there. And next is the Yoga Vrittam, secret conduct, punishment within the organization, punishment. Nowadays, we have the transfer of one department person to another department without any prior notice. Like that also it was done. But not only the transfer there, people were kept inside the department, but they were seen to be rather the secret people who are doing the work for the country, but at the same time, they were being watched as well. So then replenishment of the treasury. There also indirectly they would like to increase the treasury. Then salary of the state servants, they had a different classification for the salary, what type of work, what type of salary has to be given, then proper behavior. So all these things were discussed. under secret conduct, but for each and everything there are rules and regulation, which again comes under our topic policy. Then criminals, crimes were not at all tolerated. So artisan, trader, agriculture, everywhere the crimes and the criminals were noticed upon. Then remedial measures during calamities. During calamities, what should be done, whether it is agricultural land or whatever type it is, guarding against persons with secret income, detection of criminals through secret agent in disguise of holy men. They used to rather disguise themselves like holy men, and they used to go and rather do puja, and they used to identify, they used to get the information of the truth, and they inform to the king. Then keeping a watch over the officers of all departments, punishments for transgression. Then Dharmastiyam, one of the important lengthy book number 3, valid and invalid transaction, who can be the witnesses, who cannot give witnesses, whether relatives can be the witnesses, all these things are discussed in valid and invalid transaction. Filing of lawsuit, where it has to be done, with whom it has to be done. Then marriages, sometimes remarriages were also allowed. Partition, how the land has to be partitioned, and inheritance, whether it can come in inheritance. There also they talk about different varnas and where it has to go, and how much quantity, and the area has to go for one or each of the groups. Then laws concerning slaves and laborers. People could not be as such taken as the slaves. There were different laws available. Then partnership, people could do partnership business, and how the profit has to be shared. That is also like equal, or it is mentioned there. Like that, it is being discussed. Then physical and verbal injury. Physical injury is one thing where it goes up to even death. Verbal injury is not going to death, but it attacks the mind, and for that also the punishment is very severe. Betting, gambling, these things were allowed, but one portion of the land was allotted for this, and people could have the games like gambling and betting there. Then rid of the department, there are different departments given. That is right from agriculture, rather the finance, ship, fort, and whatnot, all the things would be there. So how the forts have to be, how the walls have to be. For that, today we have architectural things and other things. They also had all those things. The length has to be like this, the height has to be like this. Then layout of the fortified city, where it has to be, and in which area the city has to, that a fort has to be maintained. How many forts have to be maintained? Like there are different forts available. Then the accounts, that is a very lengthy topic, where because treasury is very, very important. Recovery of revenue, whatever the revenue has to come to the government, that has to be definitely rather recovered, whatever cost it is. Then shipping, now we have shipyard, shipping department, all those things. They were also rather managing the shipping department. Superintendent of elephant, chariot, foot soldiers. I have not given the full thing, but for horses, for each and everything they had superintendent, so that when the hierarchy comes, that itself means that they have had good policy. Then coming to the training segment, it is like they had policy even for the king's family, for king himself, at what time he has to get up, what time he has to do what. So it is not as he likes, he can do. It is not like that. So there itself, they have the policy for the family people, royal people, ministers, for each and every area. It has been discussed like that. So these are the 15 books which we have discussed. And coming to the statement again, once again, this material well-being is alone is supreme. So artha eva pradana iti kautilyaha. So that is what it means. So in order to have proper financial management, we should have policies. This implementation is one thing, policy formulation is one thing. We have to formulate the policy and we have to implement them. Suppose formulation is correct, but implementation is not correct, then also it is of no use. Sometimes implementation is correct, but formulation is not correct, then also no use. That is, slowly that the system will die. In some cases, the system will die immediately. In some cases, the system will die slowly. So formulation is, policy formulation is one thing, policy implementation is another thing, policy governance is another thing. So a centralized government well-trained and efficient bureaucracy, a robust systems of checks and balances, strong military supported by treasury's resources, and a focus on the welfare of the people. See, everything is finally based on welfare of the people. All this enabled by appropriate set of public policies underpin Kautilya's governance approach. Even with today's present scenario, we can correlate each and everything with this well-trained and efficient bureaucracy. The people, those who are employed there, should be well-trained and a robust system. It should be a strong system. It should not be a weak system. It should be a robust systems of checks and balances. Strong military. One should have a good military. So these are all supported by treasury's resources. Treasury does not mean only the financial aspect. Even non-financial aspects are there. So all the things together supported by treasury's resources and a focus on the welfare of the people. The king is not focusing on his family. He is focusing only on the welfare of the people. Finally, people, they only make the kingdom. All these enabled by appropriate set of public policies, appropriate set of public policies. Simply public policy is not enough. It should be suitable. It should be appropriate. Appropriate set of public policies underpin Kautilya's governance approach. Methods for ensuring the effectiveness of governance, as enunciated in ArthaŠāstra, reflect the author's comprehensive understanding of the art. He did not write as such. He had taken it from earlier authors as well, that he rather mentions in many places in his work, but he had understood it very correctly. Comprehensive understanding of the art and science of administration. Many of the insights in ArthaŠāstra are relevant even today, and they can be applied to institutions of all sizes, including education areas, educational departments and hospitals. Everywhere they can be applied. This is what all about my talk is.
वस्तुतः धर्म अर्थ शास्त्रे अस्माकं यावत् श्रद्धा भवेत् इति धिया धर्मशास्त्रात् आरभ्य अर्थशास्त्रं यावत् अस्माकं संस्कृतसप्ताहः अत्र सरस्वती मुरली महाभागायाः अत्यंत अद्भुत व्याख्यानेन ईदृशं सदवकाशेन अत्र समाप्तिमेति अस्माकं श्रुतिजालमार्गणम् इत्यस्याः तृतीयशृङ्खलायाः व्याख्यानमाला। तदर्थं कियत् श्रमम् अनुभूय अत्र अस्मान् उद्बोधितवते सर्वेभ्यः विद्वद्भ्यः विशिष्य अद्यतन अस्माकम् अतिथि वर्याः भवन्ति सरस्वती मुरली महाभागाः। ताभ्यः अपि अस्माकं शास्त्रा विश्वविद्यालय पक्षतः महदपि आनंदपूर्वकं कृतज्ञतां च वयं समर्पयामः। अस्य कार्यक्रमस्य सम्पादनार्थं ये प्रत्यक्षरूपेण अप्रत्यक्षरूपेण च साहाय्यं कृतवन्तः उद्बोधितवन्तः सर्वेभ्योऽपि वयं धन्याः इत्युक्त्वा अत्र वयं विरमामः। सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ओम शांति शांति शांति। எல்லோருக்கும் நன்றி.
Thank you, sir.
மீண்டும் அடுத்த இது போன்ற ஒரு நல்லதொரு வாய்ப்பில் சந்திப்போம். நன்றி.
Thank you, sir. Nandri.